Good evening and welcome to Nicola Valley Talk. My name is Melvina White. I'm your country lifestyle blogger with Experience Nicola Valley and your host tonight on Nicola Valley Talk. Tonight we're going to talk with Jeff Bloom, a local author. Jeff has written more than 30 books detailing his journey and the adventure of his pet crow, Squawker, his childhood pet. He will also fill us in on some of the challenges faced by the book publishing industry. Let's welcome our special guest tonight, Jeff Bloom, to Nicola Valley Talk. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Melvina.
It appears you've been a busy guy over the years, and you were a professional ball player, a teacher, a volunteer, and your list is extensive. So I'd say we better dive right in and let the audience learn about who is Jeff Bloom.
Okay.
Can you share with us a little bit about who is Jeff Bloom?
Certainly. I was born in Kamloops in 1953, so that makes me 68 years old now. I grew up there. All my experiences with Squawker, my crow, well, not my crow, but the family's crow, happened in my early years up until I was maybe 17, 18 years old. In Kamloops. I signed a professional baseball contract. I played with the Montreal Expos Farm League team for a year. I got married. I have had my wife and I have had 2 kids, and now they're fully grown and they have kids of their own. And I've taught in the valley here for 47 years, 35 years in the provincial public system, and then the last 11 years I've taught at the Lower Nicola Indian Band School. So, wow. Other than that, I write books and hunt and fish and do a lot of hiking and boating.
That sounds like quite a career you've had, and and of course outdoor entertainment's always good as well. I understand you published your first book in 2013. However, at that point, you stated you have told approximately 30 Squawker stories to all your classes. My question is twofold. Can you tell us what inspired you to write the story from the bird's perspective, and why you didn't publish the book long before you did?
Well, let's cover the second part of that question first. I didn't publish before I did, simply because I've been deeply involved in my teaching career and in my family. My wife has had 2 businesses in that time. I've been involved in that as well. And sort of time runs away from you a little bit. And it's also a sort of a leap of faith to start doing something like that, like publishing. So it wasn't until, I guess in 2010 when I retired for the first time. I've now retired twice, but the first time that my wife said to me, "Look, you've always wanted to write." She said, "Find a course somewhere that you would like to take that sounds good to you." And she says, "The money's there, just take it, do it." And so I did. In fact, I did that for 5 of the next 6 years. I went to that course, a week-long course in Oregon. And I did that for, like I said, 5 of the last 6 years, 5 of those next 6 years. And the first Squawker book came out of that directly, and published in 2013, and it was very well received, and that sort of encouraged me to go on and try to do another one. And then we had a family tragedy that sort of interfered with our desire to do anything for a long time. Mm-hmm. And when we finally started coming out of that and started feeling better, then I I did my second book. Now you mentioned that I've told 30 odd stories to do with the crow, but I've got probably more like 50 stories about the crow. And I've also got stories about flying squirrels. I've got stories about lynx. I've got stories about my dog and the coyotes. I've got, it's just an immense wealth of experience with stories, some of which are going to come later on. But I published the second book in 2019, and that was Squawker Free to Party, and it's all about him participating in a, what would you call it, a grand piano scheme where he dragged a little toy piano around the house and made us sit and listen to him play. Yeah. And if you didn't clap and cheer, then he was quite upset. Yeah, I've got an immense number of stories, and I have told them for the whole of the 47 years I've been teaching. There have been some classes that have been so enamored with them, they insisted on having what they called Friday story time. And I would take the first 40 minutes after lunch when I normally read to my students, and I would tell them stories about Squawker or about my growing up, which was, I think, not only, it was engaging for them. It's not, people don't tell a lot of stories about their growing up anymore, and I think it's really important that they do. It's a strong value for developing and maintaining culture and language and history.
And I think it's important when the teacher tells a little bit about their own personal life. It's a little more interesting for the kids, I think, to get a better insight into their teacher's life.
Yeah, I agree. I spent a lot of time actually playing with my students developed a game called, it's team handball, but it's something that we've changed and adapted so it can be played in a small elementary school gym. And I spent almost 30 years playing every morning with my students.
Wow.
And other students in the school, and then telling stories as well. So they were very, very well connected to me in that sense. And I think it built a real affinity for our relationship. Yeah.
Writing a book isn't just like putting words on the paper. There's definitely more to the process, as well as a number of other people behind the scenes. Can you tell us a little bit about this process of publishing a book and what is involved to reach the end goal?
Yeah, I can. I'm just going to. It's the process of publishing. If you sell your manuscript to a regular publisher, then the main part of that then is just sitting around waiting for them to send a request for a rewrite or some editing or something like that. You have no control over anything at all. They've bought the book; it's theirs, their baby to put on the shelves, and they even get the art done. I tried that for the first couple of years with the first book, and I thought, there was enough that I had learned about the publishing industry through the courses that I'd been taking, that I realized that if I would be lucky to find somebody who would do it. I know that Harry Potter was turned down 14 times, right? And then turned into what it did. There's so many authors, so many stories that you can find from people who write, who sent their manuscripts out so many times and didn't get anywhere. until finally, suddenly, somebody took one, right? But in my case, I decided what I would do. It's a much easier thing nowadays to do self-publishing. And so I decided that I could take that on myself. And I found out that it was good to do. I had a lot of help the first time. Nicola Gillespie and her group helped me with the first book. But I was involved in the entire process. So when it comes to the second book, I decided I could do it on my own. So just as an aside, I can let you know that it's like the writing of the story. In my case, there's 1,000 to 1,500 words initially. It takes anywhere from 1 to 3 days to write it. And that doesn't sound very bad. But then it takes anywhere from 5 to 15 rewrites, which might take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to get done. And then I have to engage an artist. And that artist will take anywhere from 1 to 3 months to get the artwork done. More like 3, usually. And then there's a graphic artist who takes all of that and puts it out in a book format. And that takes 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes a month. And then there's a printer involved. And the printer takes upwards of 2 to 3 weeks. So you can see that it takes the better part of a year to put a book out. And that's if I do it. If the people who do it professionally all the time, they have other books they have to deal with and everything. It takes anywhere from 3 to 5 years to put a children's picture book on a shelf.
How does the distribution work for when you self-publish?
Well, that's the distribution. It sort of depends on how technically literate you are, because nowadays everything is so tied to the technology. That's not my best point. And I find that in my case, the best way to market my books is personally. So I do a lot of markets, things like that. And I talk at schools. And I belong to a writers group, and that writers group also spreads the word about my books, as well as I spread the word about theirs. So most of it's been pretty local. This is a good opportunity here right now for me to be able to talk about my books and have it go beyond where I normally would. But it's just difficult for me to do as much as I can because I'm not as computer literate as I should be.
Well, we can help you fix that.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. The books do very, very well. If I'm there to sell, if I'm there to talk about the stories that I have and the books that I have, they're beautiful books, absolutely startlingly beautiful as far as I'm concerned. I try to do a really good job. I've engaged an amazing artists in all 3 cases, and if I can talk about them, then they sell.
Right, and that's important. That's important.
Yeah.
In 2019, over 54.6 million books were sold in Canada, generating $1.12 billion, an increase of 1.7% attributed to children and juvenile books. The United States generated $26.8 billion in sales, with children's books generating $2 billion of that amount, which was 29.8% of books sold. My question is, obviously children's books have a substantial share in the market. Can you give us an idea as to why that might be?
Yeah, I can. I think it's for myself, just looking at children's literature. children's stories, I think in my case, my stories are feel-good stories. There's stories that sometimes teach a lesson. There's sometimes stories that just provide a funny story. Sometimes it's brilliant art. But the thing of it is that it's something that they can actually hold on to. And oddly enough, kids like to hold on to books. I've had kids in the past, books that I've read to them, they've had their parents buy them and they carry them up into high school even every day in their book bag. They don't even necessarily open them again. It's just that they felt so good reading or listening to that story that they've carried the book with them for 5, 6 years after they've gone from, or even 8, 7, 8, 9 years after, every day after I've read the story to them. So it has a lot to do with how the books are presented. There's, and most children's books are read-alouds or read-tos or early first readers, things like that. And we were talking about children's picture books. And they capture the imagination. And kids want to hold on to things physically. And it makes their imagination that much more alive and active when they can actually hold on to the book and turn to the right page and tell the story themselves. And I think that's the part that makes children's picture books so impressive. And it's why there's so many sales made. A lot of parents want their kids to read. They want their kids to read, say, better than they did, or they want their kids to be as enamored with reading as they are. And there's no better way than to start early. So
right.
That's probably the biggest thing.
I've only read your first book when it came out, when the group helped you with it. And it was also educational, I thought.
Well, it's certainly, I like to think of it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it was somewhat educational. Ebooks and audiobooks have made their presence known in the book publishing industry. And statistics and dollars are scarce on this topic, although there's a lot of information available. What kind of an effect do you anticipate ebooks and audiobooks to have on the industry overall?
That's a question. When I was presented with that question initially, I gave it quite some thought, and I even dragged out my little e-reader. I have an e-reader right here that I haven't looked at in months, so I charged it up, and I quite enjoy using the e-reader. The one reason I think that I do is because I have experience with actual books. A lot of experience with actual books. I've read thousands and thousands of books. In fact, I have on my shelf over here probably about 250 or 300 books that I consider to be mandatory for me. I have to have them. Some of them are because of the author. Some of them are because of the stories. Some of them are because of the artwork. Some of them are one-offs. There's a book that my dad bought me, back when I was first learning how to pitch in baseball, and it's a whole book on pitching, and lots of pictures and descriptions and explanations. I will never get rid of that book, partly because my dad bought it for me. So I think that the experience that you have with actual books can allow you to read an e-reader and still enjoy the books because you know how they're constructed. You know the feel of books. I think that if you have an e-reader and you learn to read on an e-reader, that you're missing something. You're missing something vital, the feel of the book. The ease with which you can find a lost spot in the book, or you got to check back to find something that you thought, no, he didn't say that. And you go back and you can find it quite easily in a novel, but it's very difficult in an e-reader. You got to tap back, find it, and it's just difficult.
What about the audio reader, or like the audio readers?
The audiobooks, I think the audiobooks are, I think they're going to become increasingly important. I know my mother-in-law, who's just about 92, has a difficult time reading now. Her eyesight is that bad. So something like that can be effective, although she's found it difficult for her. But I know other people who have taken up listening to books rather than reading them. I have a friend down the street from me here who does not read. He doesn't read. It's too limiting for him. He can't do anything else while he's reading. So he's never read. It doesn't mean that he doesn't know how. It just means that he has never read books. But he will find that his wife has really enjoyed a certain book. So he will rent the audiobook, and he'll listen to it while he's working on his car or something like that. And he can quite enjoy things like that. He's in his late 70s. And again, there's people like that. Reading is actually more accessible to people now than it ever has been. The point is whether or not ebooks and e-readers and audiobooks and things like that are ever going to take a major place in the industry. And I think for ebooks, I think they already have a pretty major place. But as we get further on and e-readers become sort of the go-to method of reading, that you'll find that it'll start to tail off. And it has already, because people still want and find it easier to read a hard novel, right?
When I was doing the research on the industry, the books they died out for a little. Well, not they didn't die out, but they slowed down for a little bit. But they're coming right back to the top of the list again.
Yeah, you don't want to get an e-reader to have like if you're at university, you don't want all your medical books on an e-reader. It's just too darn hard to find things. Right. It's way easier to have it in a printed form.
Right.
And the same thing with, you don't want to study Shakespeare on an e-reader, right?
Or on a computer for that matter.
No, it's so much easier, so much more pleasurable to be able to, read it, check back on it, look back on it. And of course, when it comes to children's picture books, that's exactly what kids do. They don't even necessarily read the story in order. They go to their favorite page, and then they go back a couple of pages and look at another page. And one of the things I've tried to incorporate in my books is I've got a little ladybug that started out in the first book that I put in there for my daughter, who collected ladybugs when she was younger. So I got the ladybug in there. It was a minor character in the first book, a much more vibrant character in the second book. And then in the third Squawker book, which is hopefully coming out before Christmas, she has a major role. So, and yet she's small, so she has to be found all the time. And this is, and like kids love to find things, right? So
that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's very, very difficult at the present time to do ebooks in children's picture book format.
Right.
Very difficult. So you aren't going to find many that work that way. There's certain types of books that can be done that way, but not storybooks per se. Not yet.
Right. Okay, I believe you've had an opportunity to familiarize yourself with the Experience Nicola Valley program. A few months ago, the Experience Nicola Valley program won a national and provincial award for Best Community Marketing Program and Best Economic Development Program in BC. My question is, how important do you think programs like this are to a community, and what do you feel this program brings to the region?
I think programs like this are extremely important. And congratulations, by the way. It keeps flashing across the bottom of the screen here. The award was won in 21. I think it's vitally important. It highlights the things that are going on in the valley, and the fact that it gets a broader audience than simply the town or a local group in the town, but goes provincially and even nationally, means that not only is the community highlighted, but so are the people that are in it, the people that are doing things that other people wouldn't know about unless you did something like this. I think it's really, really important and impressive.
We've been very well received, and the guests that we have had on the show have the majority of them have told us that it's really put them out there in the limelight a little bit more than if trying to do on their own what they need to do.
Yes, I've spent some time working with the Nicola Valley artisans, and people come into the shop there and they can't believe the quality of the art, right?
Yeah.
And these are people from out of town that never knew the town existed. Never knew that people in a town this size could have such amazing talent.
The interesting thing is we're getting world recognition. The show gets world recognition, and those, when they make comments about our show, it comes right back to Canada and BC. So yeah, it gets great coverage, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, Jeff, is there anything else you'd like to share and leave our audience with?
Well, I was just going to say I've got my third Squawker book coming out. It's supposedly going to be out in time to hit the Christmas market. It's called Squawker. Friends Aren't Free. So it's a little bit about Squawker having a very difficult time with his friends and learning something about himself and what he has to do to ensure he has friends. So that one's coming out. I also still have The Christmas Princess this year. That was such a hot seller last year. I've got a number of copies left there. And I'll be hitting all the markets. We've got 7 markets in Kamloops that I'm doing, all the Sahali indoor markets. So that's all. Yeah, that's all coming up. First one's on Saturday.
Will you be doing the Christmas Bazaar that's at the Civic Center?
I didn't get into that one.
Oh, okay.
I did the big street market, and we did extremely well there. Again, so that's good. And I was because I did that one, I kind of missed the garlic market, which I did a couple of years ago, and that was fantastic for us too. Whenever I can get out and do these locally, I do extremely well. Kamloops, I do very, very well. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's going to continue to be fun. I'm thoroughly enjoying my so-called retirement.
Well, we'll certainly do all we can to help, and wish you all the best in getting those books out there.
Yes, and I wish you guys the best too. I think this is a great program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you, Jeff, for joining us tonight on Nicola Valley Talk, and thank you to the guests for watching and having a good night. Well, Tanya, what did you think of that? Very interesting topic for sure, hey?
Oh my goodness, Melva, you know what? I mean, you know, my love of crows and everything, and I want to buy them all because I have nieces, I have granddaughters, I have grandsons. So I know what I'm getting for him for Christmas. He's a very interesting, and I wish I had a teacher like that. Well, I think I had one kind of like that, like inspiring children with real stories. I mean, about animals, about a freaking ladybug. I mean, come on, like a ladybug. Like that would just that and that gets those chemicals in that brain going for future writers, and that's amazing. Love Jeff Bloom. I put up all his contacts up there so people get out there and Christmas presents. Those are the best. Reading books. We always got one, right? Malva, you did a great job. Awesome
Thank
guy.
you. Good night.
And good night, and I will talk to you later. Yes, again, people get get your uh Christmas presents. I mean, what better present there is than to buy a book for your children or even your dad. I bought my dad one of his Squawker books for his birthday. So and I know he enjoyed it. Okay, so again, thank you, Jeff Bloom, for your amazing stories and inspirations and everything like that. Keep it going. I look forward to your books. Okay, so please continue to spread the word. I mean, that we are the best resource online about the Nicola Valley for tourism and economic development. Also, please follow our Experience Nicola Valley Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and or YouTube page for the latest stories and experiences happening in the Valley. Make sure to tune in next week when we will have a special Remembrance Day show on the Nicola Valley Talk. So please join us. And remember, every Thursday night, join us, same time, same place, at 7 p.m. Pacific time, right here on the Nicola Valley Talk. And thank you for watching. And yes, my name is Tanya Stewart, and I am your eco blogger on Experience Nicola Valley and your host on Nicola Valley Talk. And remember to reduce, reuse, recycle, and rethink because merit matters. And thank you for all your support, Merit, and the world, and Canada, and the world. And you have a good night. Stay safe. Be kind.